Good luck, Tana. And the next question is from Liz St. John or Jean, never sure. She asks, how do you like to structure a free 1 to 2 hour intro workshop? I have a few maps in my business. How would you choose which ones to show? And then she puts the context. The workshop will have a shameless plug for my 8-week leadership bootcamp that helps quietly ambitious professionals get promoted into leadership positions so they can make meaningful impact in the world.
Yeah. So a 2-hour workshop, is it?
1 to 2.
1 to 2 hours. Makes a bit of a difference if it's 1 or 2 in terms of where the shameless plug goes. If it's a 2-hour one, I would do the shameless plug somewhere around like 70 minutes in. Do it somewhere in the middle so you don't leave it to the end. If it's 60 minutes, I'd probably just leave it to the end. But make sure you give yourself time, just for everybody. This is so important. If you have something, you got a shameless plug you got to make, you got stuff you want to tell people about, don't wait until it's wrapping up and people are logging off Zoom or walking out of the room to start talking about it. Don't give yourself enough time at the end. If it's a 60-minute thing, that means probably around 50 minutes you're wrapping up and now you're talking about your thing. So that, by 5 minutes too, you're done, or you can just do Q&A for anyone who wants to stick around. But give yourself time. The trouble when you're designing an intro workshop, you're going to overpack it. It's going to be too much stuff in it in the first one. So the first thing is you just have to figure this out on your own at a certain level, and by doing it a lot. I mean, do it 100 times and you'll know. You'll have the answer to the question. But if I had to give a general structure, it's this. Generally, we start off, this goes from Amber Beckett of the hellocode.com. This idea of you start with this formulation she has of them, or sort of us, you, me. So you start off with the us, like here, we're all on the same page about this. This issue is painful. It's terrible that you're struggling with. We all agree on that. We all agree on what's wrong, in this way. We all agree there are corporate interests ruling the world. We all agree that modern medicine has its limits. We all agree that maybe modern medicine has some good things to offer. We all agree that we need to market our business even though we don't want to. Whatever the domain is, we're trying to find this common ground so you let them know you're not nuts. You're not crazy. Then second, you acknowledge what they might be thinking, what they might have been told. You might be walking in thinking this, XYZ. You might have these fears. Maybe somebody else has told you, here's what you should do. But you're trying to acknowledge what they're bringing into the room that you may disagree with. What their point of view is, what their take on it is at this moment. So I might say, if it was me, I might say, look, so you're here because you're an entrepreneur and you need to market, but it feels terrible. But you need to do it, but you keep putting it off. And you probably have this, and then I'm moving into them and I say, well, and you may think that you may feel sort of confused. But some of these tactics are sketchy, but they seem to work. So do I need to do them? And you may have some sense that you need to be better at marketing yourself. You need to be better at promoting yourself, and you're not, clearly. And you so and then the me is, I say, okay, and here's what I think about those things. Here's my point of view. Here's how I see it differently. That's when we move into the point of view. So the first part, we're just trying to get the common ground. This is what we're sharing here, especially if your point of view is very provocative and different than the mainstream. This becomes even more important. We're on the same page. Then here's what I imagine you're thinking about this, what you may have been told. This is what the dominant narrative in society says. Here's where I disagree with it. And when we disagree with it, there's 3 levels of that. There's the diagnosis, the prognosis, and the prescription. And that is basically the arc of the presentation. And I would say 80 to 90% of that is the diagnosis. Because the prognosis, it's not very long. And if people are curious what I mean by this, just search Tad Hargrave point of view webinar, the 3 cases, you'll find it. And there's a whole hour-long presentation on those 3 things. But we go through those in that order. And again, if it's a 2-hour workshop, I do the plug somewhere in the middle. And if I have a 1-hour workshop, I'd probably just do it at the end. And then the questions of how do you make it engaging? So it's not memorable. How do you make it not just you talking all the time? How do you weave good stories into it, good activities that might drive the point home, given the limits of time? Those are all good questions, which will depend on the audience, which will depend on the circumstance and how much time you have. Yeah.
Good luck, Liz. I hope that helps.